The political battle is on. Phumtham has filed a complaint against Hun Sen. And how would Hun Sen react? He's filing a counter-complaint. Hello, and welcome to Inside AI Brief. Before we begin, please like, share, and subscribe. Welcome to the deep dive. We're here to unpack complex stories and really give you those key nuggets of insight. Today, we're diving into a pretty high-stakes political conflict, the one that's erupted between Thailand and Cambodia. We're focusing on that fascinating, almost blow-by-blow between Phumtham and Hun Sen. Now, this isn't just skimming headlines. We're going deep into the claims, the counterclaims, all the legal twists and turns, and, what it really means for relations in the region. We'll try to cut through the noise for you. So the opening shot in this whole thing was, well, a really striking move by Phumtham. It set a confrontational tone right away, didn't it? Made you wonder about diplomatic norms. What exactly was his initial statement that kicked off this intense back and forth?
Yeah, Phumtham's initial declaration was definitely bold, I'd say deliberately provocative even. He went public saying Thailand intended to prosecute Cambodian leaders, and he specifically mentioned Hun Sen and his son Hun Sen, but domestically, inside Thailand. His argument basically was that even if the alleged stuff happened outside Thailand, it hit Thai citizens' lives and property inside Thailand, so Thai courts had jurisdiction. And he had pressure too, hinting that if Thai authorities didn't act properly, they themselves could face neglect of duty charges under Article 157.
Right, and that wasn't just some dry legal point. He was sending a very clear signal, like, if they show up here, they could get arrested. He wanted to make it a real risk for them to even enter Thailand, a thorn in their side, as he put it, potentially leading to arrest right at the border. That's a big diplomatic gamble. Carries huge risks, surely.
Oh, absolutely. Huge risks. And Hun Sen's reaction, it was immediate and totally uncompromising. He didn't just send some formal note through channels. No, he went straight to social media, fired back with his late-night Facebook post, very direct. And in that post, Hun Sen just laid into Phumtham, accused him of not getting international law, diplomatic ways of doing things, protocol. He suggested Phumtham was, maybe just trying to stir up trouble because his term was ending. And crucially, he threw down a direct counter threat. Said if Thailand thinks it can arrest Cambodian leaders, well, then Cambodia can arrest Thai leaders too. Same logic. What's really telling is Hun Sen framing Thailand's move as aggression. Like they were trying to restart conflict, not fix things. Especially, he said, after what he saw as a kind of ceasefire agreement between them. So it felt like a betrayal from his side.
Wow. That kind of public, very fiery response on Facebook, it just ramps up the tension instantly, doesn't it? It's amazing how much diplomacy now seems to happen out in the open on these platforms, not just behind closed doors. It makes you wonder if this direct, almost personal clash will create new, maybe even harder to manage tensions between them. Okay, so let's unpack this a bit more, this really interesting shift in Thailand's legal approach. First, Phumtham was all about domestic courts. What was the legal thinking behind keeping it purely Thai at the start?
Well, initially, the focus Phumtham presented was very practical, very domestic. He kept saying the main thing was the impact on Thai people and property in Thailand. It didn't matter where the alleged perpetrators were. He framed it like standard procedure. Royal Thai police take the complaints, then it goes to the Attorney General, the government's lawyer to handle both criminal and civil cases. The idea was use our own system for our own citizens.
But then, literally the next morning, his position just flips. After Hun Sen's very public, very angry rebuttal, Phumtham suddenly says he's not ruling out taking Cambodian commanders to the International Criminal Court, the ICC. That's a massive change in strategy from purely domestic to international. What happened there?
It's a huge pivot, yeah. And it's really important to get the courts straight here because they often get mixed up. You've got the ICJ, the International Court of Justice, the states suing states. Thailand hasn't typically recognized its power over border stuff with Cambodia. Then there's the ICC, the International Criminal Court. That's the one that goes after individuals for the really serious stuff. War crimes, crimes against humanity. Now, Thailand isn't actually a member, hasn't signed the Rome Statute that set up the ICC, but the court can still issue warrants. We've seen it with Putin, Min Aung Hlaing, even Netanyahu recently. So this shift suggests Thailand is thinking, okay, let's look at all the options, even the less obvious ones. And the key evidence they might use for the ICC. Reportedly, it includes things like alleged MiM-21 artillery fire hitting civilian spots in Thailand. Specific examples mentioned are a PTT gas station civilian-owned, plus hospitals, schools, and sources suggest the Thai military and foreign ministry already show this evidence to an ASEAN observer team, an 8-nation team led by Malaysia. That adds some, international weight to it. So where Phumtham stands now, apparently, is that legal teams from the National Security Council, the Foreign Ministry, and the military are looking at this ICC option together. They're figuring out if it's actually doable. If they think it is, they'll go ahead.
This kind of makes Phumtham's initial domestic threat look maybe less like a solid legal plan and more like, well, a political move to get a reaction. Highlights the gap between talk and international legal reality.
Right, that's where it gets really interesting. With all these legal knots and the big strategy shift, what are the international law experts saying? Is taking this to the ICC actually feasible?
Well, Professor Phumtham and Hun, an academic who follows this closely, offered a really helpful perspective on the practical hurdles. He pointed to two big principles in international law and diplomatic practice that make arresting foreign leaders super difficult. The first is something called immunity ratione personae. Immunity by position, basically. It's like a shield for heads of state, prime ministers, foreign ministers while they hold office. Protects them from foreign courts. And the second one is immunity ratione materia. That's immunity by function. This covers actions officials take in their official job even after they leave office. So according to Professor Phumtham, Hun Sen, a Senate president now, and his son, the prime minister, they'd almost certainly be covered by these immunities, which makes trying to arrest them extremely problematic. It could even be seen as violating these established international rules.
Okay, so those immunity rules are a major roadblock for the domestic arrest idea.
Exactly. Professor Pagan suggests Phumtham's domestic threats were likely a political tool meant to pressure Cambodia. And maybe it worked short term. It definitely got that strong reaction from Hun Sen, which perhaps gave Thailand some temporary satisfaction. But the professor warns this kind of aggressive tactic will lead to further deterioration of the relationship, which is already pretty strained.
So is there any way around this immunity issue then?
Well, the academic suggests a potential way out, although it's a serious one. Going after Hun Sen for war crimes or crimes against humanity. These are the absolute gravest international crimes. And the crucial point is, under international law, immunity usually doesn't apply to these kinds of charges. The ICC's power, if it takes a case, can often override national laws about immunity for these specific terrible crimes.
Okay. But there's always a catch, isn't there?
There is. Professor Pavan raises a big caveat. He points out that Thailand itself, and maybe even figures like Thaksin Shinawatra, might have their own issues, their own thorns in their side, related to similar accusations about human rights or actions potentially seen as war crimes in the past. Pursuing an ICC case against Cambodia could open Thailand up to uncomfortable questions about its own record. It's a really complex web, you see. Everyone's connected.
It really is. So, stepping back from the immediate political clash, what does this all mean for the bigger picture? While the legal moves and diplomatic sparring grab headlines, our sources point to another angle, something maybe less visible but just as important: money. The financial side that often props up these power structures. Let's dive into that intriguing aspect that came up in the sources, something beyond the direct Phumtham-Hun Sen fight.
Yeah, there's definitely another layer here. A report surfaced, reportedly from ADC Australia via CSI Lay, alleging some pretty significant financial dealings, maybe misconduct, involving Cambodian People's Party generals and even relatives of Hun Sen. This shifts the focus from political words to the often murky world of money, transparency, and potentially illicit wealth.
And what exactly are the allegations?
They're quite specific, actually. The report alleges nearly $1 billion that's over 10 million Australian dollars spent on things like luxury homes, big plots of land, even private jets, all involved in Australia. That's serious money. And they name names. For example, Hun Sen's son-in-law, Dith Vichai, reportedly owns a 7-bedroom place in Point Cook, maybe 1.5 million AUD, and also supposedly made money selling a warehouse. Hun Sen's nephew's wife, Jackie Thim Thien, linked to a house in Berwick, over 1.3 million AUD, and maybe the most eye-popping one, Kong Vai Bol, who used to head Cambodia's tax department, allegedly co-owned 212 acres of land in Kibro, value, a reported 21.4 million AUD.
Wow. And how does that stack up against, say, official salaries over there?
That's the thing. There's a huge gap. The report contrasts these massive sums with official Cambodian civil servant pay, which is apparently around 30,000 baht a month, something like that. The difference is just enormous. It immediately makes you ask where all that other money came from.
Right. And aren't there rules about officials and money, especially in places like Australia?
Exactly. These individuals would likely be considered politically exposed persons, or PPs, under Australian law. That label means they should face tougher checks, more scrutiny on their finances because of the higher risk of corruption associated with political power. But the report suggests they somehow slipped through those checks. And that's led to calls for Australia to maybe impose sanctions, freeze assets, kind of like the US has done in some cases. What's also worrying, and connects back to the wider picture, are alleged links between these financial networks and illegal stuff Things like underground call centers, casinos may be hiding other illicit activities. It suggests a potentially deeper system of corruption.
And the implication for Thailand in all this? It's pretty significant, isn't it? If there really is this extensive network, potentially involving illicit funds, well, Thailand could theoretically set up its own intelligence effort, maybe a data center, to track the Hun family's network, their money flows.
Precisely.
It takes the conflict beyond just words and legal filings into intelligence, maybe even economic pressure, shows how tangled finance and politics can get, opening up new, maybe unexpected ways to apply leverage. Really changes the game.
Okay, let's circle back then to Phumtham himself. How is his personal style, his communication through all this being seen? Especially thinking about Thailand's credibility.
Well, Phuntham's line has consistently been that he doesn't care what Hun Sen thinks or does. He keeps framing it as purely about domestic justice in Thailand. He's trying to project this image of just following Thai procedures no matter what anyone else says.
But has that been consistent? Has it come across clearly? That's where it gets a bit shaky, according to some reports. There have been perceived inconsistencies, maybe a lack of detailed grasp on some issues. Like, remember he initially talked about maybe disbanding that special Thai-Cambodia Border Operations Center, the SBTC. That's a pretty key body. But then later, he apparently denied ever saying it. Those kinds of walkbacks, well, they don't help credibility, do they? Either at home or abroad.
No, they generally don't.
And there's also this reported tendency to sort of deflect detailed questions from the press, falling back on vague answers like it's all according to procedure, or blaming misinterpretation if the news looks bad for the government. It makes it hard for people watching to get a clear picture, to really understand the strategy's details. And there was even that reported personal dig Phumtham supposedly telling Hun Sen's son, "Your father is a problem, please fix him." I mean, maybe it was just frustration boiling over, but that kind of personal remark in diplomacy, it certainly doesn't help smooth things over when relations are already tense. It just adds fuel to the fire.
Yeah, absolutely. And you have to ask, how does that communication style, the apparent inconsistencies, the deflections, the personal jabs, how does that affect Thailand's standing, its ability to handle these really complex diplomatic waters? Does it project strength, or does it maybe suggest a strategy that isn't fully clear, even internally, especially in a region where careful, nuanced diplomacy is usually so important? It's something to think about. This deep dive has really shown us, I think, not just a high-stakes political chess match, but also all these intricate layers underneath legal, diplomatic, even financial, that shape how countries interact. As this conflict keeps playing out, what other strategies might we see emerge, and how is this ultimately going to reshape the whole dynamic between Thailand and Cambodia? Lots to watch. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Join us again for another great analysis. Thank you.